boom. Ah. Let's just take a moment to get present. Let go of the story. Let go of the day that you've just trudged through. Let go of all the to-do lists, all the roles, all the identities, all the things undone. Just sink into this now. Take a deep breath. Relax your shoulders. Maybe do some head rolls. Feel your feet on the ground. Your seat in the chair. Hear the sound of my voice and any other sounds that might be filtering into your world. Notice that in this now, free from any stories, all your needs are met. Nothing is lacking. Nothing is undone. There's simply the presence of infinity, of all. And this place of abundance, this present moment is always available. So go into your story when you need to. Battle the dragons, have the adventures, struggle with whatever tasks you've made for yourself. But know that you can always come back to this now, this perfect now, and sit. Thank you, universe, for all the gifts. Thank you for the awareness of our blessings. Help us to focus on those blessings and help us to be loving entities in the world. Amen. Welcome! Welcome to Happy Hour Hug Nation. Oh boy, oh boy. So I want to talk about some turkey. Oh, because it's Thanksgiving time? No, I'm sorry. The country turkey. I have been thinking a lot about Turkey recently. I spent 2 months there many years ago, and it's been a source of a lot of my stories and thoughts and growth. I was changed. One of my most dramatic spiritual experiences of my life happened on a mountaintop in Turkey, and if there's time, I'll play the video of that story or direct you to that link. But I wanted to share some different stories this week. I was in Turkey for 2 months, which is an amazing experience to be in any country for 2 months. Because 2 months, you can pretty much devour the travel book, your Lonely Planet guide, in 2 months. Which means you've got a lot of time to just be and sit and really fall into a go-with-the-flow mentality. And so I was traveling with my friend Eric, and we would do just like wacky things. We would like find a postcard and say, hey, let's, figure out where this is and just find that place. Or one day, we got on a bus, and the buses are very snazzy and nice. When you get in a bus, it's got like a assigned seat, and there's like stewardesses that come by and give you hot towels, and very cool. So we got on a bus that was going to take us like 5 hours into the interior of Turkey, some town that we'd never heard of. And then we decided, let's get off in the middle somewhere, in some town that there's no reason to go to. So we got off in some town and quickly found the local tea shop, because it's a pretty standard social situation. At least this was 20 years ago, so before many things. Significantly so, before the internet, or at least before it was known to my world or to anybody that was traveling. Which meant that I had an experience that most kids today will never have. For the 2 months that I was in Turkey, I was not in contact with anyone I knew. Never used a phone, never got online, never got mail at all. I mean, for all I knew, everything about my old life could have collapsed. And I'm looking for smoke in case my lights freak out. And so 2 months of being totally disconnected from everything you know is unheard of. It's impossible now. You would have to work very hard and have a lot of discipline to do that. Just 10 years later, I went traveling in Thailand and was trying to kind of get that same experience, and even just 10 years later, there was internet cafes everywhere. All the little fishing towns, everyone had internet access. And sure, I could have said, no thanks, but when you're traveling and you've got these lulls and there's this siren song of, hey, all your friends would love to hear. Oh, they probably even left notes for you. They probably sent you pictures and told you how much they love you. Go check online. Go check online. Woo. It's hard to say no to that. So, and now it's even, I mean, you can practically do that without even going to an internet cafe. You can probably just get a SIM card for your phone and stay connected. You know, you could be anywhere in the world and be connected to the same Facebook experience you have every hour of your day. So, the experience that I had then was pretty amazing. And so we went to the tea house, and then we got taken to the local high school, or school, kind of secondary school. And we got taken to an English class. And so here was this teacher who, you know, was fair. You know, this town had never seen anybody from the West before, because there's no reason to go to this town. People in this town had visited others, you know, maybe to Istanbul and met people from America, but no one from America had ever visited here. There's just no reason. So we were celebrities. Not only were we Western and spoke English, which is at the time was like, oh my gosh, everyone wanted to learn English. That was their ticket to where? America. Not just America, California. Oh, you're from California. Why California? Well, I'll get to that. So we go in, we're playing Q&A with the people and with the kids. The kids would ask us a question, and sometimes it was this cool like dynamic of the kids would ask a question, we would try to answer, and sometimes the kids would then turn to the teacher because they didn't understand, and then the teacher would try to explain what we said, and it was very cute. And at one point, they asked me what, you know, I said I was still in school, but I was taking a break to travel, and they go, oh, what are you studying? And I said, I'm studying psychology. And they're like, huh? And they all turned to the teacher, and the teacher went, and looked back to me, and I was like, psychology? It's like, and so I said, and I took some chalk and I wrote P-S-Y, and the teacher goes, oh, yes, psychology, yes, psychology. And I was like, yes, psychology, yes, I am a student of psychology. Figure, what does it hurt? And it was, one, interesting to know that psychology was this kind of very foreign word. Two, a couple days later, I got into a fairly deep conversation with a guy who had exceptional English after this adventure was over at a tea house in a more, you know, metropolitan, well-traveled area. And I was talking with the guy, and again the question came up of, what do you study? And I was like, well, I study psychology. He's like, what is that? And I said, well, you know, have you heard of Freud or Jung or Maslow? You know, these people who study the mind and the way we think. And he's like, no, I don't know that. I said, well, you know how sometimes when you do something, you think you're doing it for one reason, but actually there's like motivations beneath the surface? He's like, what? I'm like, well, you know how sometimes you're angry at somebody and you think it's because they did X, Y, and Z, but it's really because of something else that happened to you, that stuff under the surface? That's kind of psychology studies that stuff. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I had this moment of realization, like, oh my gosh, this is a significant worldview assumption. The whole impact of Freud and psychology and all of these concepts, I was just under the assumption that's the way the world is. And here was people saying, you are a crazy person. You say crazy words, that means you're a crazy person. Nothing underneath here. And it was interesting, thinking back with it in these last couple of weeks, I was kind of like remembering these stories, and I was like, oh, you know what? In a lot of ways, that awareness is kind of what I've spent most of my life analyzing and thinking about and addressing. That place between what you think you're doing, why you're doing it. We grow up having these socialization experiences through our families and through our media, and those create this worldview. And if we never question, we just assume, well, yeah, that's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do, because I don't want to be lazy, because I want to be successful. But all of those definitions of what those things are came from these experiences. Now, another thing was interesting about this Turkish experience I had there, and that was when you go to the tea houses, often there was a television, and often that was the only television in the neighborhood. And so people would congregate there and watch, Turkish soap operas and Baywatch. Baywatch was by far the most popular thing there. And imagine why. I mean, this is basically a Muslim country, 5, 6, I don't know how many times a day. You've got the prayer towers, and this is a basically Muslim country, just kind of tiptoeing into the West. And so to have 10 angels with skimpy red bathing suits coming down and showing them what the world is like, cleavage. I mean, these things are like gifts from God, Allah, or Satan, depending on how you look at it. And so this Baywatch experience was this world-opening and lifestyle-condemning thing. Before they had their televisions, how many generations would stay in the same land, farm in the same area, interact with the same families, have the same, living pretty much self-sufficient or, in harmony with what's going on. Now, that's romanticized because throughout history there's all sorts of terrible things that happen through Turkey and everywhere. But for the individual person there, now when the individual person it gets introduced to Baywatch, that moment is the biting of the apple, the loss of the innocence that has happened to everyone. Because our culture is dominated by media and television. And, to some degrees now the internet, but there's a lot of the television mentality is a part of it, and that's where we're in this interesting place now. Now, television is an amazing tool, but think about how it works. For the most part, television is advertising based, which means that the business model of television is trying to get you to sell ads. In the same way that Facebook's business model is trying to sell your information. They're not trying to provide you a service that's awesome. They do that so that they have access to your attention and your information that they can then sell. Television provides you programming to get your attention so they can sell your attention to advertisers. Now, the very nature of television is to sell ads. The very nature of ads is to make you feel like you don't have enough. You are inadequate. You need a new product. It's the creation of needs. And so the nature of television is to make us feel like, oh no, I need stuff. And so the Ponzi scheme of the capitalist economic system is fueled so much by this media system. Now, keep honking. No need to use your cell phone. Just keep honking out there. So, now, very early in the days of television, people recognized, oh my gosh, this is becoming kind of dangerous. In fact, Mr. Rogers actually testified in front of Congress to make a case for the public broadcasting company. He said, look, we need to have TV that isn't advertising based. It is important. This is taking over our culture. This is teaching our kids. We are putting our kids in front of television and letting them just be raised by this new media system that does not have our interest at heart. It has our consuming at heart. We need something else. We need to guide this and be careful. So, so we've got some public broadcasting. But what's happened since then is we've got this situation where media has become these massive power systems that are integrated with corporations. And so the capitalist commerce system and the media information system are really one hand helping the other. Why is this dangerous? Well, because the media is giving us these value system that we believe to be our reality. We believe to be what the world is. Pre-television, to know what the world was, you went into it and you talked to people. Now, could you be manipulated by the guy down the road? Absolutely. But that experience of being in the world and experiencing it is vastly different than experiencing the world as it is presented to you. It's a picture of the world. There is a great passage in Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, where they talk about art prints. And they make the argument that if you have a print of a Picasso in your house, what you have is not art. What you have in your house is a photograph of art. Art has inherent in it the energy of the creation. It has the brushstrokes. It has the history of its creation in it. And so therefore it is a energetic piece of art and symbolic and representative of creation. A print is a photograph of that. Now, a photograph can help you appreciate it. The photograph is a beautiful thing and can really, it can dress up the room and it can remind you of art, but it isn't art. And I would argue that to a large degree, we experience life in the same way. We experience photographs of life. We experience terminal-based experiences of life. When I say we, I'm saying me. And I'm being critical of the way I have been living. Now, this is significant because I put so much energy into evangelizing the love-based tools of the web, here as we're doing this now. This is a terminal-based experience. Now, nothing is black and white. I would argue that Mr. Rogers would probably think this is cool. This is an example of maybe trying to use this for good. But it's still important to recognize that that balance must be met. Every tool must be used with understanding and balance. Opium is a great painkiller. It allows all sorts of medical things to happen. But if you're on it all the time, that's a problem. The same is true with the internet. The same is true with terminal-based living. The same is true with having all of your adventures done through characters on a TV. Joseph Campbell talks about how the hero's journey is prevalent in all cultures because, that is this, well, actually that's not what he said. I was arguing the last week that the hero's journey is our guidebook. The purpose for us to be here is to lead our hero's journey, which doesn't mean that we actually have to go out and climb a mountain. It means we have to conquer the mountains inside, whatever that might be for us. We have to figure out who we are, challenge what we were raised with, the media thing, go conquer our stuff, and discover who we are. Now, that is hard when you don't leave the world that is created by the media. Now, so I am trying to get in touch with and become aware of that balance of when this is a tool and when it is a picture of life. There's another, there's a group of people in the book Naked Lunch by Burroughs. There are these futuristic addicts that actually have holes drilled in their head and take electrical wires. They find out exactly where their pleasure centers are and they just stimulate the pleasure centers. They've actually bypassed having experiences to give them pleasure and just give pleasure directly. And in some ways, that is what we're doing as our culture grows into this kind of picture of life. We're bypassing the experience and just having the sensation of it. Like a video game, these war simulations, it's like you're not actually doing these things, but you're giving the stimulus to your brain to give you that chemical sensation of it. Again, this can be tools. These can be training things. These can be ways to grow into different things. But the danger is when it becomes a way of living. Have you been into a public place recently? Maybe a place where people are waiting for a bus? When I was in Turkey, I waited for a bus for 5 hours once. Just sat there for most of the time, journaled a little bit. I had a book, but I'd already read it, and hadn't met another traveler to trade it with, so I just sat. And I think now, I'm like, how long would I sit on a bus stop now before I was on my smartphone? And I know I'm not alone because I've been in public places, and it is hard to catch someone's gaze because everybody is like this. Even as they walk. It's like the world is happening, and we're watching the world happen. Again, I say this as a wake-up call to myself. If it resonates with you, awesome. If it doesn't, spit it out. This is Belief Buffet. But Even with all this doom and gloom and, oh no, careful of the technology. I am surrounded by technology. I am communicating to you with technology. And so in this moment, I am thankful of the technology. The ability to take vibrations, energy, thoughts, emotions, and love, bottle it up, and transfer it around the world. That is a gift. You don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. So as we acknowledge that connection, let's have a Hug Nation hug. So wherever you are, grab your shoulders. This physical meat body of yours, so primitive, so amazing, so miraculous. Our technology has allowed us to kind of trick our brains sometimes into believing and having the sensations that we would have if we were out in the world. We get a little like on a comment and it gives us a little like pellet, gives us a little brain stimulation of connection. And to a degree that's valid, but we need to remember that everything in balance. And so we are thankful of this body and the human physical connections it gives us. And we recognize that this body is a shell that contains another shell, the shell of our personality, the sum of all these values and experiences and teachings. And it becomes very easy to think that that personality, those roles, those identities, those labels are who you are. And in the moment, they can very much feel like who you are. But those are a shell too. Beneath those personalities and identities and labels is your pure divine light. Your loving ember, your ray from the one. And that place has no need for triumphs or obstacles or anything. That place recognizes that we are all connected, we are all one. And so as we get caught up in our shells and we see people in our way and we get caught up in people on TV that have too much money or aren't being fair, remember that that is the clack, clack, clacking of shells. And that every person, no matter what percentage they are, beneath their shell is divine and perfect. And even while we try to manipulate and play the games of those shells, recognize that we are identical. We are part of the one. And if you can, forgive yourself for slipping out of that awareness and forgive all of those who may be so far from that awareness. See through them. See that light inside them. Even as their actions might be guided by some shell awareness, know that deep down they are God, they are divine, they are you. Let's take a deep breath and just feel connected to all the other brothers and sisters on the planet. Take one more breath. On behalf of Grandpa Caleb and all the love warriors, happy Hug Nation. Thank you for being you, for living in the world, for living online, for spreading your love however you can, for being an ambassador for what you believe in and what you are growing into. You are perfect. You are becoming divine. Namaste. I love you.